Welcome to our parent education event. My name is Doug Lowney. I'm the middle school director and MYP coordinator. I'm going to be presenting tonight with Letitia O'Sullivan, the PYP coordinator, and Megan Reed, the early childhood PYP coordinator. This event is in non-COVID times, is a really fun daytime event on campus in which we get together for a couple of hours and do the kind of inquiry with adults that we do every day with children. And that can be a dazzling and funny and fun time together. And we thought long and hard about how to reproduce that on a Zoom call, and really thought about all of the ingredients you have in your kitchen and what sort of experiments we were gonna put you through. And then we decided maybe that's not such a great idea. So we're gonna be really focused in our presenting tonight, and we're going to talk about how inquiry-based learning and the IB works at all three levels that we operate at La Scuola, in the preschool, in the elementary school, in the middle school. We have a presentation for you tonight, and so we're going to pull up a slideshow.
Doug, I just wanted to thank you and the team for doing this. My name is Valentina. As you all know, probably I'm the head of school and also the mother of a graduate of La Scuola who is actually doing great in high school, and credits a lot of his ability to pivot quickly and think deeply about things through his IB curriculum. He has been doing a lot of IB talk recently and talking about you, Doug, of course, and everything you told me. He's not here with me now, or he'll be reaching out to make sure that I stop talking. But he really has a very powerful way for them to learn. So thank you so much, team, for doing this tonight.
Grazie.
Grazie, grazie, grazie.
Great. Leti, do you, I don't know if I'm co-host to be doing the sharing. Okay.
I'm sorry, you should have been.
Okay. Aspetta un attimo.
Can you try now? And you should be able to share now. Yes.
Okay, we're good to go. Great.
Okay, so if you're familiar with La Scuola, you've probably seen and heard our mission and values. We have the mission of inspiring brave learners to shape the future. And the IB learner, the IB learning framework has a lot to do and a lot of commonalities with our mission of inspiring our brave learners. We don't know what the world's going to look like tomorrow. We don't know what the world's going to look like in 5-10 years. Most likely, there is nothing that we expect or that we plan right now that can give us a big idea of exactly what our students are going to face when they become adults. The best gift we can give to them right now is to make them flexible thinkers and prepared to, like Valentina was saying, to pivot and think differently in many ways. So that's who we want them to become, and we want them to shape the future for a better and peaceful world. The next slide shows the International Baccalaureate mission statement, which you can see is very connected and very in line with our La Scuola mission. We teach through inquiry, which tonight you're going to see a little bit more of what it means. We teach students to be caring, to hope for a better world, and work towards making the world a better and peaceful place. So what does it mean? What is IB? What are all these acronyms and all these frameworks that we're talking about? So to give you the big picture first, I invite Doug to.
Thanks, Letty. I'll be brief, but I'm aware that some people joining us tonight may not have familiarity with the International Baccalaureate. So I'll give just a very quick sketch of the history. The International Baccalaureate, often called by its acronym IB, was founded in 1968 in Geneva, Switzerland, to meet the needs of families who were living and working internationally. And for the first more than 20 years of its existence, it was only a diploma program which qualified the students in the last 2 years of high school for an international high school diploma, which is recognized in over 90 countries in the world. And then in the 90s, International Baccalaureate developed a middle years program in 94, and then a primary years program in 97. So now there's a full continuum of learning preschool through 12th grade that is adopted by more than 5,000 schools in over 180 countries. And as someone who's worked in a few different IB schools and started working in the diploma program, my own personal experience is that the lower you go in the IB, the more interesting it is. The primary years are just some of the most creative approaches to learning I've ever encountered. And a big reason for that is the commitment to transdisciplinary learning, that we're not teaching in subject boxes, that we're going after big questions with young people together in collaborative learning. And then when we get to the middle years program, we do start to be subject or discipline specific, but always with a very intentional focus on interdisciplinary learning. And then when you get to the diploma program, if you're lucky enough to stay in an IB school, you will be involved into external exams, and you really will be a part of an educational process that is crossing hundreds of countries, or more than 100 countries, not quite 200 countries, but thousands of schools. And it's a very exciting program that opens a lot of doors for kids of all kinds all across the world.
Thank you, Doug, and also for the introduction earlier. Nice to see some familiar faces and some new ones. I'm Megan, and the early years coordinator at our preschool early childhood campus. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this great slide that was born a year or two ago, but has got new images rotating in every year. But I just love how it really demonstrates kind of what this transdisciplinary learning and teaching really looks like. And moving from a model that you see kind of up in the top left corner with all of the subjects kind of segmented into their own boxes, and really moving towards this fluid way of engaging in education, which is really reflective of how children and people's brains are structured, right? Our brains do not have little boxes for science and for art and for math, and everything is kind of woven together in our lived experience. So we at La Scuola really believe in an educational model that reflects that. And so, thinking about that, you can do geography in the digital atelier and do art outdoors. You can do a science experiment in the atelier. You can learn about anatomy with buttons. You can learn about architecture through tinkering. So I think this really just showcases kind of some of our lived moments here at La Scuola with transdisciplinary teaching and learning.
And then comes the answer to a question that that has been asked to me several times from fellow teachers who are not in the IB system, or parents at La Scuola who, when they come in and are still learning about what we do. We do teach them math, and we do teach them social studies and science and geography and all of that, but within bigger picture ideas, right? And these ideas are reviewed, and they go into more complexity, and they go deeper every year and continue into the MYP and the DP with a different lens, with a different structure, right? So in the PYP, you're going to see these transdisciplinary themes that we have, that are 6, starting from who we are, which focuses on personal, physical, mental, social, and spiritual health. And then where we are in place in time, how we express ourselves, how we organize ourselves, how the world works, and sharing the planet. Sometimes throughout the year, we're going to see that some subjects become heavier and more connected with a unit than others. For example, it's impossible to do how we express ourselves without having so much language and so much art and so much music with it, because these are all very expressive languages we have. And also, it's difficult for me to picture where we are in place and time unit that is not going to be heavy in geography and social studies and history, right? Same way as how the world works is are usually units that focus a lot on natural sciences, and sharing the planet has a big picture idea both for environmental studies, but also social studies and how we all share this planet with other species and other people. So throughout all the years of the PYP, we see these transdisciplinary themes. And then in the MIP, they become something slightly different that are our global contexts. But these ideas and there's a continuity in all these themes and this way of approaching our inquiry and how we're gonna learn. Not so transdisciplinary in the MIP, but definitely interwoven in the transdisciplinary and the PYP. So tonight, we're going to focus on where we are in place and time. And in the MIP, it's orientation in space and time. From Grandi to 8th grade, we developed different central ideas, but all connected with this inquiry about where we are in place and time, an inquiry into orientation in place and time, personal histories, homes and journeys, the discoveries, explorations, and migrations of humankind, the relationships between and interconnectedness of individuals and civilizations from local and global perspectives. So it's a lot, and as you can see, all of that can be taken apart, and we can dive deeper into these concepts through our central ideas that evolve over the years. In Grandissimi, we start with a journey that allows us to, journeys allows us to explore and connect with the world. Then we fast forward to go maybe to kindergarten and explore what is the past, or geography in 2nd grade. In 3rd grade, we explore the central idea that an awareness of indigenous people helps us to understand our present day histories, which is the main topic that we're going to be talking about tonight. We explore migration, and then you're going to see this evolve all the way through the MIP as well, always with this big idea of orientation in space and time, or where we are in place and time. So let's take a look at how it is explored and how inquiry goes in the preschool first, and then we're going to provoke you a little bit further in elementary and middle school as well.
Grazie, Leti. So yes, Letizia gave us a great foundation for the journey that we're going to take tonight together. But in putting this presentation together and thinking about a meaningful topic to share with you all, I think something that, this kind of jumped out at us, not only because there's this unit in 3rd grade dedicated to Indigenous peoples, but also because we as a school really had a big effort right around kind of the Thanksgiving time recently to kind of start thinking about the people that have lived here for a very long time, and started kind of doing some research and decided to commit a school-wide effort to this topic and kind of investigating more, always with our inquiry mindset around that. So I think what really stands out to me here is that these really complex concepts and themes and ideas are approachable kind of at every different age level. It's just going to look differently. So I've highlighted some really great examples of how kind of during that Thanksgiving week, we did a little bit more research into the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who is the indigenous peoples of the San Francisco Bay Area. And you can see here from some different quotes, a lot of the provocations that we offered were with images, with sounds, with music. Especially our youngest learners, our piccoli and our grandi, were able to engage in some beautiful dancing with Native American flute and lots of different songs from that. But it's just amazing how you can kind of find a way to adapt whatever you're talking about kind of with every different group. And you can see the grandissimi, who are working on their letters and getting ready for kindergarten next year, decided to make a sign to post in the garden space, saying that this is the earth, the space, the land belonging to these peoples. So that was a really beautiful moment, and projecting some images in the different classes, and which is going to connect really to some experiences that Letizia will share with us shortly. But just kind of projecting those images and letting the children come up with their own theories, and not giving them, giving them just enough information to kind of structure the conversation and keep them on track and make it meaningful, but also really let them kind of hypothesize and question and challenge each other about, well, what are they building, and did they live in these houses, and they look so different from our houses. And I love the quote from Calvin as a student actually in my class this year, and I ended up actually telling the kids in my class that, that it's happened in the past where people actually, lived in a place and that was their land. And then sometimes people actually came and took that land away from them and didn't actually ask permission. And my students particularly are very fascinated with this idea of being respectful, and rispetto is one of our all school agreements. And so they were saying, that's not rispetto, and you need to share the land, and had this kind of big up in arms response to how could that possibly be that someone just came and took the land away from them? And they were just like kind of jaws on the ground as I was telling them that, yeah, this has happened in history, and, sharing just enough to be age appropriate and not get, too into it. They're only 4 or 5, but also to have that be an important part of the conversation. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. And then to close kind of on the preschool experience about this, I have a brief video for you all. Great. Okay, I'm going to pass it off to Letty. If I can get out of this, 1 second. Sorry, bear with me.
Okay, can you hear me now, Megan?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen right now.
Perfect.
Let me. So right now, I'm gonna show you an inquiry activity, a provocation we did with our 4th graders, 3rd and 4th graders this semester during our unit about Indigenous peoples. Unlike what many people may think, or what would be thought maybe 100 years ago about education, students come to us not with their heads completely empty about a topic or about a subject, right? So we want to provoke them at the beginning of a unit, wanting to know what they already know about a topic, what they think they know, what misconceptions they might have, and what questions they come with, what they want to learn, what they wonder about a specific topic. And this is an activity that we've done with them before, and I would love to do it with you tonight, so you can put yourselves in the shoes of the students approaching this new unit, looking at this image and letting us know, what do you see? Then what do you think about this that you see? And what do you wonder? This is a thinking routine to help us make our thinking visible. And based on this, knowing what's the thinking of our students, we can design and we can prepare a lot more of the unit and where this inquiry is going to take us. Another misconception people sometimes have about inquiry-based learning or about the IB or even Reggio is that everything is so fluid that we don't know where we're going, right? Or there are no learning outcomes. In fact, there are learning outcomes, but we can't expect to just throw all this knowledge and all this these concepts and facts on the children without understanding where they are first and what questions they're asking, what questions they want to answer about this. So we do have our goals. We do have what we would like them to learn about Indigenous peoples, but first we need to know where they are. And tonight I would like you to go through a similar experience and let us know, what do you see, what do you think, and what you wonder about what you're seeing. So if you could please get your device, your phone, your computer, or an iPad, then if you go to the website www.menti.com and use this code 2031085, you're going to take a look at this image and you can put in some words that come to mind about what you see here. And let's see what we all can come together about what we are seeing, about what we're thinking about, we are wondering. So right now.
Letty, could you say the code again?
I'm
Yes.
going to put it in the chat. Yeah.
2031085. Can you see the image right now? And then through a learning experience like this, which by the way, we don't have the credits for designing this kind of learning routine. This is a thinking routine designed by Project Zero and Harvard, and is one of the great tools we have for inquiry-based learning. And we want to see what are the students' thoughts about something, and we provoke them to not only just say, what they think, but also to dig deeper and to deconstruct some possible misconceptions that can come out of it. So when we go here, as you are, okay, now I see people gathered, sitting and standing, ships, land, colonization. So some big words coming up that we're going to have to scaffold and look into the unit. Native Americans, wooden ships, Native Americans, ocean, nature coming up, birds, food. I see colo, I think maybe colonization as well, church and state, interesting concepts coming up. More food, I see ships becoming bigger here. People, peaceful, that's an interesting concept. Different groups, different clothing, groups of people meeting, introduction, colonization. Beautiful. And it keeps evolving, it keeps moving as you think more about what you saw, right? I can show you the image again. And many of the words that were coming up on the word cloud are there, right? I see. And it keeps evolving. The more you look at it, the more you think about what you're looking at, you can describe with more accuracy. Now let's write down, what do you think about this image? What thoughts come to mind? What do you think about these people? What do you think about this ocean, these ships? What do you think about the nature? What do you think about the birds you mentioned earlier? What do you think about this gathering? Is it peaceful? Like said before, what do you think about these big words that came up early? So misleading, uniting. So right now you can actually write more than just a word. You can write a sentence to this. Biased, another big word for us to explore. So I see a lot of colonization, misleading, imbalance of power. What do you think? What do you think about this that you're seeing? So a lot of our opinions come up during this kind of activity. It seems to present a peaceful encounter, two very different groups gathered around a book. And as we gather here with our third and fourth graders, when we do an activity like this, we can understand a lot of what they're bringing from home as well. Maybe what they're hearing about some of these characters, maybe what they've learned before in previous units, maybe what they've learned in preschool or what they've learned in first and second grade. Trying to understand each other. Seems like they have just met each other. The groups seem very different from one another. Excitement, uncertainty. This looks like the artists showed their impression of history. I think people are arriving to communicate. Subhumanize. First interaction, potential of good and bad. Very nice. So right now, at the beginning of the unit, we already have a lot of material to explore. So many big words that we could ask the students here as well to start dissecting and taking apart. But now it's time for us to gather questions. What questions does this image bring to mind? What do you wonder about this image? What questions would you like to find the answers to? What inquiry? What can we go further into as we move forward with our inquiry? What questions should we answer? Do we know everything about this image, or does it bring things that we would like to know more? So what do you wonder? Who is capturing this history? Very good. What else do we want to know? I wonder if there is a threat with the arrival. How do the people in both groups feel? How do Native Americans who are alive today feel about this? What are all the perspectives? Who drew this? What is the location? What are they trying to tell us? Very interesting. So, by the way, this image is called Descubrimento de Puerto Rico, La Llegada de Colón. And I had the name of the author showing here, but I'll go back to it soon and I'll let you know. Is all okay here? Do they want to be together? How are they communicating? Will someone get smallpox? So a lot of previous knowledge comes up here as well. Based on the questions we ask, we also can see what questions are coming up, right? What knowledge or what concepts and preconceptions we may have already. What is the intention of the people? What is all good for all? Was this all good for all? What happens next? And so on. Nice. This is very, very exciting. And now I would like to show you, now that you've very bravely shared with us what were your questions about it and what you saw, what you thought about it. and what you wondered about it, I would like to share with you what our current fourth graders answered when posed the same questions. So our students see a lot of ships, like you did. I also see a lot of people. Some are naked, some have shirts. I also see a lot of waves in a big ocean. I see people with flags. They notice nature a lot, our students. I see lots of baskets of food, indigenous people on the beach. So I can already tell here by what they see. I can see that they already have some vocabulary about this unit that we're going to explore. I see white people going to indigenous people, parentheses, Indians. So this is something interesting as well that we explored throughout the unit. Based on their comments and based on their observations, we saw that there are multiple ways to designate people and multiple words, and which words should be using, which words should we not use, where do we find which terminology is appropriate or not, and not being fair. So they already have some notion about fairness here. I see ships and part of an island, and in the back, then I see white men and indigenous people. And it looks like the white men are taking control of their home. I see the big ocean crashing and lots of sailboats. I see boats, color, and I see people. What they think about it, I think that is Christopher Columbus ships, because I think those are his flags. I think white people are taking their homes. Let's also remind ourselves, this is San Francisco. These are San Francisco kids. So the knowledge and the impressions they come from home also is important, and it's very unique and particular from here, right? Perhaps we wouldn't see this kind of see, think, wonder if we were in a different place of the country or a different place of the world. I think some people there are more rich or have more money than the other people, because some of the people have clothes and some don't have a lot. I think while white men have just arrived in America, I also think they are taking over indigenous people's land. I see Christopher Columbus ships. So as you can see, there is a lot. It's a very a very mixed class of some with a lot of background knowledge about what they're looking at, and some with not much background knowledge. They just see richness and poorness, while some have clothes, some don't. And these are amazing, rich moments and differences that we would like to explore in the class. And then the questions they came up with a lot more questions, some related to Christopher Columbus' family and what happened to him afterwards, what happened to the indigenous peoples who were here afterwards, what they couldn't, I wonder why they couldn't have shared America. Similar to what the pre-K student was, why can't they just respect? Why can't they just share, right? I wonder if white people actually needed something or just did that to hurt the Indian. I wonder if these are Christopher Columbus flags. So these were the questions that helped us start the unit, and the unit culminated with at the Thanksgiving week, and when we were all involved also in the land acknowledgement piece. And our students in fourth grade were working in persuasive writing, and they actually wrote persuasive letters to our head of school, Valentina and Benny, asking her that we should acknowledge that the land where we are, where our campuses are, we should acknowledge that this is Ramaitu Shaloni land.
I wish I was a school lady so I could show you the beautiful stack of letters that they all wrote to me, actually at the time where we had been discussing this at the DI committee at the board level. So it was actually, it just came before the winter break, and they're actually incredible. I mean, I read all their letters, so it was really inspiring. Thank you, Leti.
Thank you, Vale. And it's very interesting how sometimes it may seem that some of these things are things that we are asking them to do, but they come up with like, this is not fair, we should do something. They want to take action. And especially those who have been at La Scuola for so long, they're already used with the take action piece of the IB, which is a major piece of our inquiry, usually will culminate in taking action. So they want to do something about it, and they want to do something to change. So this was their way to take action, one of their ways to take action about this unit. And I would like to share this here with you, just for you to get a taste of what it is that, how it was that we inquired into it, and how we set foot into a complex unit like this. Now, in middle school, it's going to look different, and it's going to become even more complex, as Mr. Lowney can now show you.
Thanks, Letty. So just as Leticia says, in middle school, like in the primary years program, we're still very much focused on taking action. But a new and significant driver in the MYP is the direct instruction in learning how to ask and answer different kinds of questions that are really driven toward being careful about the kind of action we're going to take, and being sensitive to or aligned with what I would call epistemological humility, being cautious about knowledge. When I was talking with Megan and Leticia about this, I was wondering, well, where has Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous people appeared in the middle school curriculum? And that I immediately thought of the unit we did a couple of years ago on fire ecology, which was not focused on Indigenous people, but that became a really central insight in our inquiry. The inquiry was built around a trip we were going to take to Yosemite Valley, and we were working with an outside organization that sent us kind of a menu of learning options that had to do with, one of which was in fact about Indigenous people, about come and learn about the Miwok people. Another was about geology, etc. And I wrote back saying, well, actually, this is not a 1-week field trip for us, but is fully embedded in a unit of inquiry. And the thing that we're really interested in learning about, because this was a few years ago, and the skies were full of smoke, we're really wondering about fire ecology and how the relationship between living things can be viewed as a system, and how do we understand that. At the middle years level, we structure all inquiries around 3 kinds of questions, and you could think of them as a kind of hierarchy that build on one another. Factual questions, making sure that we have the knowledge we need to understand, to use concepts and understand systems. And once we have gathered facts, done our inquiry to get our knowledge and information, then we're trying to use that in systems, and we're asking conceptual questions. And after that, we go to debatable questions. We realize that as knowledge goes out into the real world, you may have your facts and concepts right, but those can be used in different ways that are people with knowledge and understanding can disagree with one another legitimately. May I go to the next slide? Grazie. So just like in the primary years, in the MYP, we always begin with provocations, and just as Leticia said, or Megan said, provocations are doing 2 different things. They're really trying to stir people up, and they're also trying to find out about prior knowledge. And so before going to Yosemite, I did some free writing with students. This is weeks before we go, because it really is a part of a much larger inquiry. And then I'm working, I guess I should say, I was working with the math and science teacher in an interdisciplinary way, and the art teacher. We're also looking at nature writing and nature art. And so I asked students the questions I knew could be upsetting to them, because it doesn't really make sense for most people in San Francisco to wonder whether national parks are bad for the forest. But if you think they're good, why do you think they're good for the forest? And certainly as someone who grew up in Northern California and had a certain image of logging, I think for many San Franciscans, they think, oh, well, should we be logging the forest more? And why would we be doing that? And then just to find out, what people know about. When I grew up here, we didn't have a fire season. And when I moved back here a few years ago, we have a fire season every year. Why is that? What's happening out there? And then this larger debatable question, what should our human relationship to the forest be? So students wrote about this in class, and then we talked about it. And that generated a lot of questions and a lot of wondering. And that stirred up a lot that led us to our inquiry. And so if you can go to the next slide. This inquiry went on for 6 or 7 weeks, and it really reached out across a wide variety of subjects. We were looking in earth science, in ecology, in biology. We were studying photography. We were reading nature writing and studying land art. We were studying geography, natural geography, environmental studies, and ultimately ethnic studies. Of course, early on, we were studying fire ecology and the science of fire and history. I'll just give you an example of some of the things we looked at. There is, of course, a rich body of artwork representing Yosemite, both painting and photography. And we looked at a photograph from the 19th century and a photograph from the 21st century of exactly the same place in Yosemite Valley. And you can see that there's the rock in the foreground, and if you look carefully, the top of the canyon wall on the photo on the right, you can see this is the same place. And this was an opportunity for us to really start to see that the natural world too has a history, and that we can ask questions about why the world looked in this kind of way and why it has changed so dramatically. Could we go to the next slide? So just to share very quickly about some of the ways in which we developed these multiple perspectives. In both social science and science, we studied the bioregions of the western slope of the Sierra Nevada. So students were responsible for doing research and presenting to the class on the Coast Range, on the Central Valley, on the subalpine slopes and the alpine slopes. And once they had done that, we developed field guides to identify the various kinds of trees, flora, and fauna in those valleys. And it was wonderful to be in Yosemite Valley and having students distinguishing among different kinds of pines and putting their noses into the Jeffrey pine to smell that unique sense of that. In history, we read from Yuval Harari's book Sapiens about the impact that humans had on all natural environments on the planet. That what happened in the world when humans came out of Africa and arrived in Australia, arrived in the Americas. What effect did that have on the flora and fauna in the world? We read articles from Scientific American about how scientists are using carbon deposits in tree bark and in soil, and they can tell in a really specific way the history of fire in a natural environment. And scientists have from that research, I've come to see that fire occurred in a very regular way and occurred in very small parts of the forest in different years in a way that could not have been natural. And they came to see that the forest was being burned intentionally, and they came to develop this understanding of fire agriculture. In English, we were reading excerpts from John Muir and the American poet Gary Snyder and the environmental writer Aldo Leopold, and seeing how writers use language to learn to see in new ways the natural world. And we were studying some paintings such as Albert Bierstadt and Ansel Adams photographs and the land artwork of Andy Goldsworthy with this idea. We didn't have anyone paint while we were there. But we certainly, during our trip, we're doing a lot of photography and did produce land art. And then along the way, we were also doing historical writing about the European invasion of the West Coast, and what has actually happened to who lives in the place called California over the last 200 years. The book that's on the slide, Benjamin Madley, had just come out, which is a really extraordinary, detailed historical account using contemporary primary resources, like the newspapers of the day, to really establish the case for genocide in California. That book also has a beautiful, in the intro, talk about the pre-European world in the Californias. So I share this just to give an idea that, just as Megan was saying earlier, that we want to be developmentally appropriate, and there's a rich debatable question about what is developmentally appropriate. How old or how young does an American need to be before we start having real conversations about genocide? And I just want to share that at our middle school level, we're not reading the whole book, but we are certainly not in any way holding back from students texts that could be used in high school or university, and scaffolding to give our students the richest intellectual experience they can. So we went to Yosemite and we had an extraordinary time. I think I want to go to the next slide. And I can tell you that 5 years ago, I never would have imagined that I would take a group of students to Yosemite to go and cut down trees, preparing them for a winter burn-in. But that is exactly, that's not the only thing we did, of course, but that is one of the taking actions that we did while we were there. We were working with the National Park Service to clear some of the new growth that in previous centuries would have been burned at the end of the fall season before the winter, to provide space for more mature trees to grow and for other kinds of seeds to sprout. So for me, like, what was the benefit for students of going through these kinds of things and having this kind of experience and looking from this many perspectives at fire ecology and at Yosemite? And some of the things that come to my mind is that I could see with the students who were there, that the students who went on this experience and who did the whole inquiry know how to read the landscape. They can identify flora and fauna by name. They could identify shifts in bioregions and tell when we'd moved out of the subalpine zone into the Coast Valley, and they saw that when the trees that they could name shifted. And that was really wonderful. I saw them practicing scientific observation, both in formal nature journaling and in designing and running fire science experiments, and presenting those results while we were in Yosemite. They were able to practice art making in multiple media, photography, writing, natural materials, so they could see and imagine the world in new ways. I was very proud to watch them reading the official histories on plaques in the national park, and being able to read those with a critical perspective, noting omissions above all, and also seeing whose story was being told, and being very sensitive, actually, just as the teacher was saying about the fourth graders, to the language that was used, and to see how that was enhancing or limiting or lessening certain perspectives. And certainly coming back as the fire season returned that year in San Francisco, I was particularly gratified to hear students read news accounts of forest fires with a critical perspective, and understanding that something that is as seemingly as natural as a wildfire has a history and has a cultural and ethnic dimension, and that to come to this understanding that something we as Californians need to do is to recover this indigenous knowledge and wisdom, which protected and lived in harmony with the forests for, according to the carbon data, at least 4,000 years. Though people have been living here for at least 12,000 years, the carbon data suggests that fire ecology is about 4,000 years old. And the graduates of La Scuola know that, and they're taking that out into the world, and that's a source of a lot of pride for us. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Doug. It's so wonderful. It's so beautiful to see how everything evolves and unfolds throughout the years. And so we would like to leave the next few minutes to you all to please, of course, we would like to thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here tonight with us. And please let us know if you have any questions or any comments. We're here for you, and it's your time to inquire and to ask us about the inquiries we do. If anybody wants to write on the chat, or I can't see everyone while I'm sharing here. How about this? Let me stop sharing so I can see everyone.
Better.
Oh, I see. Vedo qualche bambino anche. Ciao, B. Avete delle domande? Do you have any questions? Oh, I see some here in the... loved your description. So, Andrea Ferretti, to you, Doug. I love your description of the interdisciplinary approach in the middle school.
Am I on mute? No, I'm not. Thanks for the question. I am a humanities teacher who actually loves to do math with students. So just as a personal thing, I think there are always mathematical dimensions to anything you're looking at. And I know that some of the parents on this call are parents of former students of mine, and I've driven those kids nuts with, particularly with timelines and showing mathematical representations of time and space. But that's the global context, right? Orientation in time and space. And so that's one way we do it, but I certainly work with, at La Scuola, I don't know that this will always be true, but I'm happy that it's true now that our math teachers are also our science teachers, that in the same way that we've integrated the language arts and social studies courses, we've integrated the math and the science. And so in those subjects, math and science are coming together in an interdisciplinary way on an everyday basis.
Grazie, Doug. And I have
also, sorry, Lady, I wanted to say also as a parent as well. I mean, I think it's also very interesting how you always show different sides to every story. And I think the students really get something unique by that. I remember quite fondly, like the unit on global warming, and now, the representation of the fact that, hey, there are actually people who have benefited from global warming, which, doesn't maybe naturally occur to us as, is overall a bad thing. And I think, for the students to be able to see, these two, not just two, but multiple perspectives is so important. And I guess we see that, especially today with everything that's happening. And I think the beauty of the change from transdisciplinary to interdisciplinary, it's natural and it's part of also where the students are at that age. But I think maybe something that maybe if you have already covered it and I missed it, forgive me, but there still is a connection. It's required by the IB, and it's also desirable that you will connect some units, correct, Doug, and some subjects?
That's correct. At the middle years program, we have an IB requirement to have at least one interdisciplinary unit in each grade, but we far, far exceed that. Well, for one thing, because our humanities, every unit is interdisciplinary, and many of our science and math units are interdisciplinary, but certainly our art and design teachers are always fishing for connections to other subjects. So I would not hesitate to say that we probably have at least 5 or 6 interdisciplinary units per year. I was just talking to Travis today about a PE, environmental studies, social studies project we're going to kick off in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you, Vince. Grazie. I have a question from Andrea again about how do teachers manage this with math. I mean, math unfolds and evolves with their with the students, and we keep following the program. We do math in an inquiry-based approach, which is we follow the Singapore math, but we are always interweaving it with our units. So, for example, if we're doing a unit about the market, that's the unit, of course, when we are going to explore money. Or if we're doing a unit about experiments or the states of matter, how the world works, that's the unit that we would likely explore in math, measurement and capacity. So all these, the factual knowledge in math that is going to support the learning within the unit. Of course, the number sense is going to be developed throughout every year on the pace of the students. It's not going to be dictated by which unit we're doing, but a lot of what they are learning in math is going to give them more abilities and more skills to be better learners and to be better inquirers. So to understand a graph, to understand data that is presented to them, understand percentages, understand how to read what they are looking at, read the world through the numbers and through forms and shapes and data that is presented to them. So this is how we interweave our math program as much as we can. Of course, we're not going to stretch it too much. If there isn't a connection, there isn't a connection. But whenever there is a connection, we will explore the connection as much as we can. See, Doug would also like to.
I just want to share, Letty, that two real world contexts in which math has come into the humanities in the last year. I'm thinking of the unit that Valentina was talking about, global warming. I call it the geological time unit, but I'm disputing that with my students. One of the summative assessments was looking at different models of carbon capture. And in order to identify the best model, they really needed to do the math. They needed to see what it was going to cost and how much it was going to capture in these different models. And I think when students think when they're doing math, that math is just this abstract thing that you do in math class on a piece of paper. And what is so exciting about the middle years approach and the IB approach and the transdisciplinary approach is these things are always coming together. So just as Letty said, it's like soccer practice and the soccer game. You need to learn the skills. You need to learn to kick with the right part of your foot. But when you're in a game situation, you know, it's your own intuition of how to use it in the right way. Another example of that is in the first unit of remote learning last spring, we did a unit on global public health. And we're exploring modeling for the pandemic and also modeling around herd immunity. And this is a big math problem. And in order to understand this, like you need to look at the model and see what the math behind it is, and to understand infection rate versus the number of people who need to be infected before you get to herd immunity. And so we did that math, and that was like using math in real world. So I'm not teaching math in the same way that Jake and Neelam are teaching the skills, but I'm assuming that it's there and I'm drawing on it in a real world way.
Absolutely. I have two very, very good questions here on the chat that I would love to try to approach both. One question is if the inquiries tend to be the same. And then there was a question from Brooke about how can parents best support the IB process at home? So I would like to approach that one first. How can you best support the IB process at home? The IB process, I hope what you could see tonight a little bit is about going further, going beyond the surface and always learning and assuming you still have more to learn, right? So there's no better way to support your child than becoming a model for them, letting them know and letting them see that you are comfortable not knowing all the answers, that you are comfortable always seeking for new ways to see the world, new ways to approach and to understand the facts. The facts are the same, but I would like to know, how does this other person feel about these facts? How do other people, maybe in a different country or in a different culture, what are different perspectives? How do these facts connect with others? Of course, tonight we didn't have the chance to. We would need a lot more than an hour to go through all the IB concepts and all the IB elements, but a very important element that we have are the key concepts that we're going to see in every unit as well. So the concepts of change, perspective, connection, responsibility. These are concepts that you can explore at home all the time. So whenever your child poses a question to you, take a pause, take a moment, and think of a way you can answer to that question, maybe with another question, or how you can help them or ask them to help you how to find out the answers. Or if you need to give them the answer at that moment, give them the answer, but let them see a different way that answer or that fact, how that unfolds in a different way. So the best way for you to support them is to let them feel comfortable with not knowing everything and feel comfortable as being learners and being inquirers, that there's always so much more to learn. And we're never going to be stagnant and reach a plateau. If you've reached a plateau, you're in the wrong position. It's time to move. It's time to learn more. And if the increase tend to be the same, no, they don't tend to be the same. We showed you a cut that we did vertically through pre-K, elementary, and middle school, because we had intentionally this goal of showing you how inquiry evolves and how it can be done through the same topic and through the same theme throughout pre-K, elementary, and middle school. But as you can see, if you look at the whole program of inquiry that we have, you can see then how the central ideas and how our inquiries will evolve and how they change within the same transdisciplinary theme or within the same global context, how it changes throughout the years. And it's never the same. It's the topics, the key concepts, the transdisciplinary themes, the structure is there, and the structure is predictable. It changes and it is the same, and it keeps expanding with the children. But the central ideas and what they are learning will never be the same, as they are not the same as well.
Yeah, no, and actually, Leti, this connects also to, the Reggio Emilia approach. I mean, this idea, yes, I mean, maybe it has the same name, the unit, but also when Leti described at the beginning of this meeting, how we do what could be also called a certain type of pre-assessment. I mean, you want to know what your students know. They're going to be a different group every time. I think intrinsically, both the Reggio Emilia approach and the IB are closely connected to the socio-cultural context where they happen. And then each group of students will be different and will bring different things to the plate. And so I think because of really also the giftedness of our teachers, and this has to be said, I mean, this is not an easy way to teach by any means. They will actually look different every year. And to Doug's point, when we did the Yosemite trip, I mean, there could be a year where we have actually torrential rains, especially in California. We're never bored here in California. Either we had a drought or a torrential rain or a fire or a pandemic, or, there's always something exciting happening in this part of the world. So that's going to keep us going.
Yeah, like I said before, there's no way to predict what our students will face in the future. So we have to prepare them to be open-minded and prepare them to face anything that comes at them. We would like to thank you very much. We went a little bit over time. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being